All right, tracking another report now, which has set alarm bells ringing in Britain. It has emerged that the United Kingdom is the biggest audience for jihadist propaganda content in Europe on the internet. More number of people in Britain were found to be viewing and reading jihadist propaganda in comparison with other nations of the European Union. But on the world stage, Britain was ranked fifth, with Turkey, US, Saudi Arabia and Iraq topping that list in the wake of the recent spate of terror attacks which have taken place in the United Kingdom. The security officials there are viewing this statistic with utmost seriousness. In fact, the government in Britain has told companies like Google and Facebook that they need to do more to block jihadist content on their sites. Let me go across live to WION's international correspondent Daniele Pagani. He's joining me live from the newsroom. Daniele, if you believe what these policy exchange analysts are saying, they say that Islamic State, despite facing military defeats in Iraq and Syria, they're still coming out with at least 100 new items in terms of jihadist propaganda. And Britain, as we understand, is consuming large amounts of that content. What explains that?
Well, regarding the first segment of what you said, the reports are to be believed because the Islamic State has always been producing an enormous amount of media, and the fact is that those media are specifically targeting segments of population all around the world. You remember with the first exodus of Syrian refugees into Austria, the Islamic State wrote several papers which were precisely targeted to those refugees getting to Austria. So it's a very fast organization, it's evolving very rapidly. Yes, they are suffering enormous blow. Their social media heads are being killed and have almost all been killed. When it comes to understanding why London, why Britain perhaps is also part of a demographical problem, and also part of the fact that the kind of users who could turn to these sorts of material very different. There are already people who are extremists, religious extremists, people who have been traveling in and out of Syria, and also elements who are actually already, let's call them radical elements of society, meaning isolated, frustrated, problematic elements of a society which turns to these sort of material to express their anger and frustration. Also, let's not forget that England is participating in several front lines, is fighting in several front lines against several Sunni extremist organizations.
Right. All right, Daniele, also my last question to you at this point is, one can fight militarily the Islamic State on the ground, but when it comes to using the internet and spreading their ideology, it really knows no boundaries, no limits. How will Britain now, in view of the recent terror attacks that we've seen, move to block that or sort of contain that?
Well, it's very difficult to do it as a national entity. The necessity here is to talk with the owners of the social media, with the highest institution in the social media and in the internet. You need to talk to Google, you need to talk to Facebook, you need to tell them to implement certain policies, which is already happening, but as you can imagine, the amount of material that needs to be scanned every day is enormous. Therefore, finding a strategy, a clear strategy to eliminate, eradicate all the jihadi presence on the web is very difficult. But the only thing that a national government can do is to pair with Facebook, with Google, with Twitter, and with all the medias that the jihadist organizations are using, and find a common strategy to overlook, to take a look at whatever is being published.
All right, Daniele, thanks so much for joining us with details on that story that we're tracking. With that, a quick look at what else is making news across the world.